Financial, joining us on the phone from Charlotte, North Carolina, where I'm guessing in a few hours' time he's going to be singing happy birthday to Gus. Aww. Happy 7th birthday to him. Hope you're going to celebrate well. And the markets, they're not quite sure whether to celebrate or not today. Stocks, we're going to get into it, movers and shakers in just a minute.
Your best pirate impersonation.
Happy birthday.
I guess that's a no.
Yeah.
You are listening to Bloomberg Radio.
What if
1 in 2 people believe they should check their work email on holiday. 1 in 3 believe it's okay to eat a colleague's lunch. And 1 in 14 believe it's okay to steal loo roll from work. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
We could play epic music, or we could speak in an overdramatic tone, or even set off fireworks. But that's just not smarty. Instead, we let our offer do the talking. Right now, you can grab 25% off our unlimited data SIM. That's just $18.75 a month, with no speed restrictions, no credit check, and no long contract to tie you in. Now that's smarty. Just search Smarty Mobile and switch today. It's easy. Offer available for a limited time only. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
Jamie Theakston and Amanda Holden.
Hard breakfast. Tom Hanks is our special guest.
You're either being punished or rewarded. I'll let you decide.
I did do a whole show of grease on my front lawn when I was a kid. We charged everyone 10p. We raised a fiver, and I gave it to Bishop's Waltham Gymnastics Club towards a new crash mat.
Do they get the crash mat?
I mean, it took a couple more years, but yeah.
It does happen to normal people like you. You've won £20,000. Well done.
I love this game.
Hard breakfast
with Jamie Theakston and Amanda Holden. Weekdays from 6:30. Listen on your radio, global player, or smart speaker.
Play halves.
Should we go halves?
I'll get this. Let me just get my card, which was in my pocket.
You can't control awkward first dates. But if you temporarily misplace your Visa debit card, you can freeze and unfreeze it on our mobile banking app. Feel in control every day. Lloyds Bank, by your side. You can only freeze some transaction types. T's and C's apply.
The world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. A move lower for the Dow Jones Industrial Average. S&P too close to call as that bell sounds, swinging between gains and losses, looking at red right now, but that could change. We have got NASDAQ higher by 5. That's an advance of 0.1%. Folks from Charles Schwab Investment Management, by the way, ringing that closing bell on this Thursday. Here's where we stand. The Dow down 55 points, close to the low of the day, down 0.2%. S&P down 0.5 point. Little change there. 3,006 right now on the S&P 500 index. NASDAQ advancing 5 points, eking out a gain up by just about 0.1%. So equities trading where they began the day, very close to it as investors failed to find a catalyst to lift the benchmark stock index to a record. S&P 500 index, though, still within 1% of a record. Ryan Dietrich is senior market strategist at LPL Financial. Moments ago right here on Bloomberg Business Week, he told us he's been keeping an eye on small cap stocks.
You know, look what small caps did just last week. Obviously, the value trade finally came back to us. Some of those more cyclical names, like financial specifically, all of a sudden look like they're ready to take the baton and start to lead. And that's how bull markets work. You pass the baton around. If you drop the baton, you're in trouble. It doesn't seem like that's the case.
First day out for Datadog, up by 39%. Microsoft and Target both announcing buybacks. Both companies moving higher. Microsoft up today by 1.8%. Target shares up by 0.8%. The 10-year up 1/32, looking at the yield of 1.79%. Gold up 0.3% at $14.98 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude advancing today up 0.4%. This after 2 days of losses, 2 days of steep losses. West Texas Intermediate crude now at $58.35 a barrel. So recapping here, S&P 500 index virtually flat on the day, down now by just about 0.5 of a point. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Move around. Motion creates the motion.
I feel the earth move under my feet.
You move like they do. I've never seen anyone move that fast.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Company's called Movers and Shakers. They cost a little more, but that name cracked me up.
Bloomberg Business Week, Movers and Shakers, with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, it is time to take a look at the closing numbers. Charlie, of course, breaking down those major equity averages, but let's dig a little bit deeper. S&P 500, 205 names in the index higher today, 298 lower, 2 unchanged. And Grubhub, I don't know if you took a look at that, Jason, but
I did not.
There's been a conference going on, and noted short seller Jim Chanos,
heard of him,
talking about some names.
Winner of the Brackets for a Cause contest earlier this year, Jim Chanos.
He won that?
He did.
He won it. Okay.
He did.
So very cool stuff. But he doesn't think it's so cool in terms of Grubhub.
He's not so into the Grubhub.
He's not. He's shorting the stock. He says the company has lost ground to competitors. So we did see that stock down as much as 7% in today's session. At the close, it was down 5.2%. 60.51 was the close. It's still, and it's not had a great year. It's down about 21% so far this year. He says, and of course, Jim Chanos, his company is Kinnikos. He's a noted, as we said, short seller, runs a hedge fund. He says Grubhub drivers are not making much money. So there. And as a result, we did see, sorry.
So there.
I don't know. Uber Technologies, it's interesting. I think people looking at kind of that business equation.
Yeah.
So Uber was down as a result. They own Uber Eats. That stock was down about 1.3%. And I believe Yelp also saw some pressure in today's session as a result. It was down 1.7%.
So can I say, I mean, I do think there is rightful pressure on that space in the sense that it's a hard business to pull off. The ride-hailing business, the straight-up ride-hailing business where you're essentially just replacing a taxi or a car service, like, okay, I get it. It's point to point. But this whole notion of you got to go, you got to pick up the food. Is the food ready? Is the food right? Am I waiting in line? Is there sort of separate kitchen that I'm going to? Then I got to get it to the person, and I've got to sort of get out and deliver it. That is a much more complicated equation than just picking somebody up and dropping them off.
It also only makes sense, right, if you have scale. So if you are picking up 10 dinners and taking it to the same apartment, well, then you can make more money off of it. So I agree with you, Jason. Every time I'm like, so did I just get this? And then you had to really kind of tack on another, essentially cost you whatever that ride was, and I only paid you a much smaller amount. So I don't quite
I don't quite get the economics, especially for the drivers, of how all this works. I get it from a consumer perspective, like it's very convenient, but
drivers tell me too most of the time, they're like, yeah, we don't want to do that.
That's why we need drones for that. And as we know, they've been testing that. One name I'm looking at, Microsoft. We talked about it earlier in the show. Dave Wilson pointing that out. The big buyback. Sarah Ponzak, I think, was talking about it as well. Up to $40 billion. Investors liking that for Microsoft. The shares up 1.8% today. Are they above $1 trillion? Yes, they are.
Yes.
They are like healthily above $1 trillion, $1.077. So no small feat. And I believe they're the only $1 trillion company right now.
Right? Is that right, Dave?
Dave Wilson's here. He's going to keep us honest.
$1 trillion?
Taking a quick look.
Was it the Amazon?
Amazon's not there. Apple was at $998.5 billion. So yes, the answer is yes.
There you go. Dave Wilson fact checking in real time. Love it.
Using the Bloomberg?
Using the Bloomberg terminals.
Kind of love it. Hey, I want to mention DaVita because that was another one that was on Jim Chanos's radar that we just talked about. He, too, says he's short, and he made that comment at a conference. He argues that if there's a negative court decision in a Florida lawsuit from Blue Cross, it may blow up DaVita's business model. So a spokesman for DaVita, we reached out, did not immediately return messages seeking some comment, but DaVita shares also under some pressure, down about 2.5% in today's session, and that stock up 16% this year.
All right, let's take a quick look at volatility. The VIX up 0.57% today, closing at 14.03. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Dave, you're up.
Hi, my name is Dave.
Wilson, where are you? Wilson!
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
We're going for a price on Wilson.
Open up the door, it's Dave. Who? Dave.
Hey, Mr. Wilson. Dave Wilson, as you know, in our studio. What do you got?
I've got Easy Corp, Carol. They own pawn shops in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico now. The first two letters, Easy, comes from the company's original chain, Easy Pawn. They operate under about a dozen other names these days as well. Easy Corp was founded in 1989. Now, the company went public in 1991 by selling non-voting Class A shares, whose ticker is EZPW. There are also voting Class B shares, and all of them are owned by a single Australian private equity investor, Philip Cohen. Easy Corp Class A has been volatile over the years. The shares more than quadrupled between March 2009, July 2011 to set a record, and then they plunged as much as 94% through February 2016. Since then, they've been stuck with most of their losses. Now, Easy Corp said late yesterday that its chairman, Lachlan Given, had been removed from the board after 4.5 years. Cohen replaced him as chairman, and he'll be paid as much as $3 million a year under an agreement with the company. And they also named a lead independent director, Matthew Appel. Now, Given is staying at Easy Corp to help with deal making and funding. Even so, all the changes did not go over well. The Class A shares dropped 11.5%, and that was the stock's biggest loss since June 2017.
Interesting. The pawn shop business.
I think pawn is how most people say it, but you know,
New Jersey
if you want to go full Jersey, you can say pawn.
Don't ask me to say drawer.
Water.
It doesn't come out well. All right, Dave Wilson, thank you so much. Thank you, too, for saving us when it came to $1 trillion valuations.
Just keeping us honest. I had it right, by the way.
I know you do.
I know.
All
Dave
right.
Wilson, you're a savior in so many ways. And you had pointed out the Microsoft buyback at the top of the show, I believe. Dave Wilson, you'll be back with us tomorrow throughout the show, keeping us honest, giving us some stocks and charts to look at.
We're going back to climate change, a special initiative all this week, really around the world by various news organizations. So we'll talk with one of our guests that we've had here on Bloomberg in just a moment.
Let's get to Bob Moon. He's got world national headlines. Hey, Bob.
Jason, a short-term measure that would avert a government shutdown at the end of the month has been passed by the House. It's now on the way to the Senate for consideration. Meantime, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is giving in to calls for more funding for voting security measures ahead of the 2020 election, the issue that saddled him with the derisive nickname Moscow Mitch. Senate appropriators today approved a fiscal 2020 funding bill carrying $250 million to be dispensed to states by the Federal Election Commission. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau offered a second straight day of apologies after a yearbook photo surfaced of him in brown face at a 2001 costume party. The revelation was followed by reports of multiple other similar incidents. Trudeau, who is facing re-election next month, says he does not remember all of reported incidents, but he says such conduct is always unacceptable and was a dumb thing to do.
It was not something that represents the person I've become, the leader I try to be, and it was really embarrassing.
Trudeau gave no hint of resigning. Saudi Arabia invites the world to see who's really to blame for attacks on its major oil installations, as Iran claims those attacks came from Yemen. The United Nations says its panel of experts on Yemen has arrived to start its mission to determine what happened. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says it's very clear who's to blame.
I think it's abundantly clear, and there is an enormous consensus in the region that we know precisely who conducted these attacks was Iran.
Iran's foreign minister issued a warning today that any attack on Iran by the U.S. or Saudi Arabia will spark an all-out war. Global News 24 hours a day. I'm Bob Moon.
From tech.
You think that big companies have a leg up when it comes to innovation in this space.
To taxes.
How has that impacted tax receipts for various entities?
You need breaking news and the long view.
There was another bit of tech news that I'd love to get your views on.
Bloomberg Markets.
Where do you think people should be looking in the market?
With Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern. On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep...
What's that, Britain? You want unlimited data? Oh, you want more. You want it on the unstoppable, unbeaten, unrivaled #1 network? Well, who says you can't? Get unlimited data on EE today, the UK's unrivaled #1 network.
Unlimited data, personal use only. Terms apply. Root metrics comparison of 4 mobile networks H2 2013 to H1 2019. See ee.co.uk.
1 in 4 children believe potatoes grow on trees. 1 in 5 children believe fish fingers are made from chicken. And 1 in 8 adults believe the moon landings didn't happen. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
G'day. Hi, it's Marcus from Dudley.
Marco?
Listen, I'm trying online dating for the first time, but no one's swiping right.
No drama, Marco. All you need is a bit of an image upgrade.
Try adding a few props to the old profile pic.
A cute puppy dog.
A book of poetry.
Or an orphan you saved from a knife-wielding shark.
And you might want to delete the bit that says you're looking for an open relationship.
Really?
Yeah, that's a convo you can have on date 3.
Oh, great. I'll give it a go.
No worries.
Foster's. Good call.
Drinkaware.co.uk for the facts.
A nice weekend. A nice walk. A nice relax on the sofa. Is nice what you really want, or is nice not satisfying you? You're always thinking, can I do more? Life as an RAF reserve could satisfy that urge. With life-saving, mountain climbing, truck driving, helicopter flying weekends. So when Monday comes and Jackie asks what you've got up to, you can say you've had more than just a nice weekend. There's a role waiting for you right now. Search RAF Reserves. Find your force.
Jamie Theakston and Amanda Holden.
Hard breakfast.
Tom Hanks is our special guest.
You're either being punished or rewarded. I'll let you decide.
I did do a whole show of grease on my front lawn when I was a kid. We charged everyone 10p. We raised a £5 and I gave it to Bishop's Waltham Gymnastics Club towards a new crash mat.
Do they get the crash mat?
I mean, it took a couple more years, but yeah.
It does happen to normal people like you. You've won £20,000. Well done.
I love this game.
Hard breakfast
with Jamie Theakston and Amanda Holden. Weekdays from 6:30. Listen on your radio, global player, or smart speaker.
Play hard.
Do you remember? Here
Here at Tesco, we're still celebrating 100 years of great value, with even more great prices that take you back. Like our Tesco pineapple, from £1 to just 59p. All this week at Tesco.
Selected stores excludes Express, subject to availability, offer ends 30th of September.
You don't just live in one room, so why should you Wi-Fi? With Sky Broadband's Wi-Fi guarantee, you'll get Wi-Fi in every room or money back. Perfect for food shopping in the bedroom, gaming in your PJs in the lounge, or streaming sci-fi movies in the kitchen. Get Sky's super-fast broadband and Wi-Fi guarantee. £32 a month for 18 months with $19.95 setup. Click on the banner now.
Sky Fibre areas, Sky Kit required. Refund on boost component of subscription paid during current minimum term up to date of claim. Minimum 3 megabits per second or money back. Prices may change during minimum term. See sky.com/guarantee.
Should we go halves?
I'll get this. Let me just get my card. Which was in my pocket.
You can't control awkward first dates. But if you temporarily misplace your Visa debit card, you can freeze and unfreeze it on our mobile banking app. Feel in control every day. Lloyds Bank, by your side. You can only freeze some transaction types, T's and C's apply.
Is the sound of tiny pieces of gravel crunching and popping against one another underneath the sport-styled wheels of the new Ford Focus ST stimulating your senses into a spine-tinglingly relaxed state? No? Or maybe its powerful engine and the latest technology might help you relax instead. Contact your local Ford dealer to find out more about the new Focus ST and experience a new way to relax. And breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. The Federal Reserve is set to add liquidity to a vital quarter of the funding markets for a fourth straight day tomorrow, amid signs that the stress seen earlier in the week is rebuilding. Struggling, Ascena Retail Group is considering the sale of 2 more of its chains amid mounting losses and signs that creditors are losing confidence in the company's prospects. Stocks flat on the day with the S&P 500 index holding at 3,006. The Dow dropped 52 points, down 0.2%. Nasdaq up 5, a gain of less than 0.1%. 10-year up 2/30 seconds, yield 1.78%. Gold up 0.3%, $14.98 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude oil up 0.5%, $58.41 a barrel. Recapping, S&P unchanged on the day. I'm Charlie Pellet. And that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thanks so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week right here on Bloomberg Radio.
It's not easy being green.
So it's
having to spend each day.
Really great week this week, because all week we've been featuring stories, reporters and guests on climate change as part of our participation in the Covering Climate Now initiatives. It's a global collaboration of more than 220 news outlets to highlight climate change, and it's led by the Columbia Journalism School. So with us, having said that, Garvin J. Bush is back with us. He's co-founder, chief investment officer of Green Alpha Advisors based in Boulder, Colorado, returning to our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. So we have been talking about climate change, and one of the interesting stories I thought was when we talked about renewables and how it's really become a viable industry, whereas 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, maybe it was kind of a cool thing. It sounded like a nice thing to do, but people were not all in, and financially it didn't quite make sense. That's not the case anymore.
Yeah, that's extremely true, Carol. The rise of renewables and the plummeting of the cost of renewables has been dramatic just in the last 10 years. You know, you said 20, but it's really been even more recent than that. And it's all about scale, right? Wright's law and a different version of Moore's law in the case of silicon PV, photovoltaic panels, means that every time there's a doubling of deployment, the cost comes down about 30%. And so there's been enough doublings in the last 10 years that now, you know, the cheapest power purchase agreement the utilities are signing with solar is under 2 pennies a kilowatt hour. You know, this comes up against natural gas at 5 pennies and coal at 5 to 10. So it's extremely economically competitive.
That's amazing math right there.
Yeah. Wow. No. And it's why it makes a fantastic forward investment, because if you're a utility, what do you want to buy? 2 penny power or 5 penny power? Because you get to keep the difference, because what you can charge your ratepayers is mandated by law.
Right.
And so you were testifying just recently down in Washington, the House Select Committee on the climate crisis. And it does feel like, and this goes to your exact point a minute ago, we seem to be at a moment where people are starting to take notice a little bit, and it's not just because of initiatives like we're talking about this week, but lawmakers starting to get more serious about it. It's not just celebrities being like, hey, save the earth,
Right.
it's cool, we don't want it to disappear. Why is that?
Because the risks are now so much more apparent. We were talking about how fast renewable energy economics have changed in the last 10 years. Well, so too have the risks associated with the climate crisis. They're so much more evident now that people really are taking notice. That's part one. And part two is the younger generation that are really going to have to live through the worst outcomes of the climate crisis are becoming politically aware. And so they are starting to make a lot of noise.
Well, and I even think about this. It's interesting you say it, because I think about this from a consumer perspective. We just had an author on a couple weeks ago. Last week, I believe it was, new book out called Fashionopolis that's really about consumption and production and manufacturing. And consumers, especially younger consumers, seem to be voting with their feet. That feels like an investable theme there, right?
Yeah, no question. Between a lot of the sustainability topics are very investable right now. It isn't, like Carol, like you were saying with renewable energy, it's a super viable investment right now, not because it's green or warm and fuzzy, but because it makes economic sense.
Right.
All across
Follow the money, essentially, right? And it drives it. But okay, so having said that, I'm just thinking, if I'm running a business and I'm looking at cutting my costs, right, to improve my, profit structure, that if I see that difference between nat gas versus solar, why isn't everybody ramping up? Or is it just a case it's not as viable maybe in the Northeast as it is in the Southeast? Like, tell me the dynamics there as we look at our country and maybe the world.
A handful of things going on there, but yeah, one is just the geography. Some places it's windier than others, some places it's sunnier than others. In the sunniest places, solar makes the most sense economically, not just in terms of how well it works, although those things go together.
Yeah.
Same could be said for wind. Now, the other part, though, is that there is political structure. There are some places where the local government doesn't want to see it coming, and so they put up barriers to prevent it. So even historically,
I understand with the wind, like the pushback, because they don't want them, off of Martha's Vineyard or what have. But for the same reason?
Yep, sometimes it's NIMBYism like that. They just don't want to be able to see the solar panels out their window. And other times it's a little bit more ideological. Maybe it's an older generation that grew up with the fossil-powered utility, and they just think that's how the world should be, and so they sort of will put up regulatory barriers to block it.
What about lobbying in terms of political by the energy space?
And that, of course, is a big factor, because the fossil energy space still has more money and more political clout than the renewable energy space.
Right, and forgive me, everybody's lobbying, but fossil versus,
So, speaking of politics, tell us about your experience testifying. What were the questions like? What was the tone? What was your takeaway?
First of all, I want to compliment Kathy Castor, the congresswoman from Tampa, who is the chair of that committee, the House Select Committee on the Climate Crisis. I thought it was interesting that she wanted to invite an asset manager to testify before the climate crisis. It shows that she's perceptive. Investing where capital is deployed is where the economy flows from.
Yeah.
Where you invest is where stuff happens. And she correctly perceives that if you can fix investing, you can fix the economy and maybe solve the climate crisis.
Right.
And so that's what I told them. To answer your question directly, they asked me, what's the biggest risk coming from your industry? And I said, from the investment management industry, the biggest risk related to the climate crisis is that by and large, my industry is ignoring it.
But I also think, it would be interesting to look at the portfolios of various lawmakers, too, to see how many have exposure to fossil energy companies at this point.
Yeah. My guess is they all do.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, because it's just so endemic to simply buy an index fund and forget it. The S&P 500 has 60 fossil fuels companies.
Correct.
And if I'm thinking like a fiduciary, I don't want to own the causes of the climate crisis, because those are going to be dramatically, like Mark Carney says, there's going to be a Minsky moment for the carbon-facing economy.
Agreed.
And they're going to be dramatically repriced at some point. You don't want to be in front of that.
So fun to talk with you. Thank you so much. Garvin, great to see you. Garvin J. Bush. He's co-founder, chief investment officer over at Green Alpha Advisors, based in Boulder, Colorado, back in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio on this Thursday. You're listening to Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. No real reason for big moves on Wall Street, so investors didn't make any. The Dow fell 0.2%, down 52. The Nasdaq added about 0.1%, 5 points, and the S&P finished on the positive side of flat. The trade news that had given an early boost shares with encouraging talk from the White House canceled itself out after a report that a presidential advisor indicated steeper tariffs against China could be ahead. China is where the trade war is taking a bite out of Apple. A survey of Chinese consumer attitude shows the company fell from 11th a year ago in an annual report on China's top brands to 24th now. Before the trade war, it ranked 5th. Apple shares fell nearly 1%, one of the Dow's loss leaders. And gunmaker Colt says right now there are enough sport rifles on the market, so for now it will stop making more. That includes the AR-15. The company's CEO says the decision is temporary. I'm Joan Doniger, Bloomberg Radio.
Hey, it's me, your cell phone. We need to talk about something serious. I know you love me. I know you like using me wherever you are, but I feel like this isn't working out when you're driving. I know you may think that it's possible to focus both on me and the road, but I just don't feel the same way. I think we should spend time away from each other when you're driving. It's for the best.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions. The Bloomberg...
1 in 4 children believe potatoes grow on trees. 1 in 5 children believe fish fingers are made from chicken. And 1 in 8 adults believe the moon landings didn't happen. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
We could play epic music, or we could speak in an overdramatic tone, or even set off fireworks. But that's just not smarty. Instead, we let our offer do the talking. Right now, you can grab 25% off our unlimited data SIM. That's just $18.75 a month with no speed restrictions, no credit check, and no long contract to tie you in. Now that's smarty. Just search Smarty Mobile and switch today. It's easy. Offer available for a limited time only. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Jamie Theakston and Amanda Holden.
On breakfast. Tom Hanks is our special guest.
You're either being punished or rewarded. I'll let you decide.
I did do a whole show of grease on my front lawn when I was a kid. We charged everyone 10p. We raised a £5 and I gave it to Bishop's Waltham Gymnastics Club towards a new crash mat.
Do they get the crash mat?
I mean, it took a couple more years, but yeah.
It does happen to normal people like you. You've won £20,000. Well done!
I love this game.
Hot Breakfast
with Jamie Theakston and Amanda Holden. Weekdays from 6:30. Listen on your radio, global player, or smart speaker.
Play hard.
Get smart, get savvy, and get saving this month at Tesco Mobile with some of our best ever prices on the latest phones, like the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, now only $34.49 a month. A huge saving of £144. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of September. S10 Plus savings based on £4 per month. 36-month credit agreement, 24-month usage agreement. Subject to status phase. Policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms. Should we go halves?
I'll get this. Let me just get my card, which was in my pocket.
You can't control awkward first dates. But if you temporarily misplace your Visa debit card, you can freeze and unfreeze it on our mobile banking app. Feel in control every day. Lloyds Bank, by your side. You can only freeze some transaction types. T's and C's apply.
You don't just live in one room, so why should your Wi-Fi? With Sky Broadband's Wi-Fi guarantee, you'll get Wi-Fi in every room or money back. Perfect for food shopping in the bedroom, gaming in your PJs in the lounge, or streaming sci-fi movies in the kitchen. Get Sky's superfast broadband and Wi-Fi guarantee. £32 a month for 18 months with $19.95 setup. Click on the banner now.
Sky Fibre errors, Sky Kit required. Refund on boost component of subscription paid during current minimum term up to date of claim. Minimum 3 megabits per second or money back. Prices may change during minimum term. See sky.com/guarantee.
From the TuneIn Studios, I'm Fonseca with your latest sports update. Well, we've got the San Diego Padres at the Boston Brewers today. That game is starting off at 4:10 p.m. Pacific, the first pitch.
High
line drive. Deep left center field. Bader is back. Braun! A grand slam!
Search Padres or Brewers so you don't miss a moment of that game. And don't forget, we do have them on demand, so you can go back. That's for our premium subscribers. That's your TuneIn Sports Update.
Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Well, coming up, we are going to talk with one of our favorite columnists over in the world of Bloomberg Opinion. We're going to talk a little pot, maybe talk a little Soul Cycle, too.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll get to that in just a moment. Sarah Halzek is a retail columnist with Bloomberg Opinion, so we'll get her thoughts on a variety of topics. In the meantime, let's talk about business topics with Charlie Todd.
Hi, thank you very much, Carol Master. Equities ended the day right where they started, with the S&P at 3,006. Flat on the day. Investors failed to find a catalyst to lift the S&P to a record. Look close for a while there, with the Dow slumping 52 points, down 0.2%. NASDAQ eking out a gain, little change there, up less than 0.1%, higher by 5 points. Federal Reserve is set to add liquidity to a vital corner of the funding markets for a fourth straight day tomorrow, amid signs that the stress seen earlier in the week is rebuilding. The struggling retailer Ascena Retail Group is considering the sale of 2 more of its chains amid mounting losses and signs that creditors are losing confidence in the company's prospects. Sources say Ascena has had discussions about divesting Catherine's and Lane Bryant, which specialize